Here we have part 2 of the open box volume maximization problem, where from the previous video we had expand the function v for easier differentiation to get 4x cubed minus 34x squared plus 72x. The next step is to find the derivative of the function v. So using the power rule, we can write that as 12x squared minus 68x plus 72. And then to find the critical points, we need to take that derivative and set it equal to 0. So we have 12x squared minus 68x plus 72 is equal to 0. Let's first see if we can pull out a 12 out of every term. 68 divided by 12 is not, so that doesn't quite work, but we could pull out at least a 2 because they're all even. Could we pull out a 4? 68 divided by 4, yes, we could pull out a 4. Can we pull a 4 out of 72? 72 divided by 4, yes. We can pull out a 4 to simplify things a bit. So if we pull out a 4, 12 divided by 4 is 3, so we have a 3x squared. 68 divided by 4 is 17, so 17x plus 72 divided by 4 is 18, is equal to 0. From here, we need to factor our quadratic to get this into linear factors in order to find our critical points. One strategy of doing that is to do a times c, so 3 times 18 is 54. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to get 54 and add to get negative 17. So let's write some factors of 54. It would be 1 and 54, and then 2, 54 divided by 2 is 27. 54 divided by 3 is 18. 3 and 18, so we can't add or subtract any of those to get 17. If we do 4, 54 divided by 4 is not an integer. 5 wouldn't work. Let's try 6. 54 divided by 6 is 9. So 6 and 9 adds to 15. Ah, so close. But I think that that tells us that we can't get our value. Or wait, let me do 54 divided by 7. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. Okay, so we can't use regular factoring. Let's use the quadratic formula instead. So x is equal to negative b, which would be 17, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which would be negative 17 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 18, all over 2a, which is 2 times 3. Simplifying this, we get 17 plus or minus 17 squared is 289, so the square root of 289 minus 4 times 3 times 18 is 216, all over 6. So 289 minus 216 is 73. So this would be 17 plus or minus the square root of 73 over 6. No wonder why we couldn't factor that one, because the square root of 73 is definitely not a perfect square. Let's see if we can simplify that at all. We can't divide out of 2, we can't divide out of 3, or 4, or 5. Let's try 7. 73, I don't think that that'll work though, no. 73 divided by 9 doesn't work, 11 doesn't work. Let's try 13. 13 doesn't work. 73 divided by 17 also doesn't work. And the square root of 73, no. So we can't simplify 17, the square root of 73. So our two solutions would be 17 plus the square root of 73 over 6, which is approximately 17 plus the square root of 73 divided by 6 gets us approximately 4.25. And the other option is 17 minus the square root of 73 divided by 6, which would be 17 minus the square root of 73 divided by 6 is approximately 1.4. So these, we have our two critical points. However, our critical points must be in our domain, which we found in part 1 that our domain is from 0 to 4. So 4.2 is too large. We only have one critical point, which is at 1.4. And it asks us for the value of v at the left endpoint. That was where x is equal to 0, which we found in the previous video was already a volume of 0. And we also found at the right endpoint, which was a value of x is equal to 4, that the volume would also be 0. So those would be at the left endpoint and right endpoint of our domain would be 0 and 0. So that means our maximum volume is going to happen when x is equal to 1.4. So let's plug in 1.4 into our volume formula before we take the derivative, which would be, let me write it over here, 4 times 1.4 squared minus 34 times 1.4, sorry, should be a cube. 4 times 1.4 cubed minus 34 times 1.4 squared plus 72 times 1.4. Let me plug that into my calculator. 4 times 1.4 cubed minus 34 times 1.4 squared plus 72 times 1.4 is 45.136. So our maximum volume is 45.136, and that happens when the last question says answer the original question. The value of x that maximizes the volume is our 1.4. Now remember, I rounded this 1.4. If you wanted to keep more decimals, then you definitely could do that, or you could leave it as the 17 minus the square root of 73 over 6. That would be the exact solution, would be 17 minus 73 over 6. The 1.4 is just rounded. So again, you're welcome to use the exact values. Okay, well, I hope this step-by-step solution was helpful for you. If it was, feel free to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell if you would like to see more step-by-step video solutions like this one. Thanks for watching.